Caitlin Clark, a WNBA rookie taking the league by storm, has seen her name dragged through the mud by bad faith actors. She's denounced anyone using it to push an agenda. Politically, Clark is now involved with the recent news of one big-name singer.
This was, I don't think you know about this, but this was just posted online by a woman you might have heard of whose name is Taylor Swift. And she has posted this online along with a photo of her cat. Like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now is a great time to do your research on the issues at hand and the stances these candidates take on the topics that matter to you the most. As a voter, I make sure to watch and read everything I can about their proposed policies and plans for this country. Recently, I was made aware that AI of me, quote me, falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to his site. It really conjured up my fears around AI and the dangers of spreading misinformation. It brought me to the conclusion that I need to be very transparent about my actual plans for this election as a voter. The simplest way to combat misinformation is with the truth. Then she says, quote, I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she is a steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we're led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ+ rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. I've done my research, and I've made my choice. Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make. I also want to say, especially to first-time voters, remember that in order to vote, you have to be registered. I also find it's much easier to vote early. I will link where to register and find early voting dates and info in my story. With love and hope, Taylor Swift, signed Childless Cat Lady.
The end is obviously a dig.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
At this sellout, J.D. Vance, back to Clark. She is in the news for that reason, liking a post on Instagram from Taylor Swift. She received a lot of backlash. But first, let's hear why she gave it a heart on the platform.
I think for myself is, I have this amazing platform, so I think the biggest thing would be just encourage people to register to vote. I think for myself, this is the second time I can vote in an election. At age 22, I could vote when I was 18, so I think do that. That's the biggest thing I can do with the platform that I have, and that's the same thing Taylor did. And I think continue to educate yourself with the candidates that we have, the policies that they're supporting. I think that's the biggest thing you can do, and that's what I would recommend to every single person that has that opportunity in our country.
Now, after this news broke, folks were mad, and I mean like
CEO and to do right. You're looking at a principle. For example.
Hold it. You're looking at a principle.
Why you don't want to let him talk? You mad.
To give an idea, just go to her comments on Instagram. Just threw away my jersey. Trump 2024 wrote semper.twin.dad. If you look at his page, really no surprise. The bigger shock would be that this man is raising a few daughters and is endorsing that guy. It says a lot. But there would be more. Another user named Outstanding in America would type, just play basketball and build your brand. A brand that the entire country can love. Stay out of politics. Your brand will suffer. You are young. Ask your close friends and family for advice. Where to even begin? You know what? Let's get through this and then I'll save my comments for the end. M.T.5918 added, we lost another great baller. One of the best I've seen as a woman. I only started watching basketball because of her outstanding skills, but now she's involved in politics of the Dems. I'm moving on to something else. From TS Vegas 816, you just couldn't keep politics out of sports. You have just lost millions of supporters, Trump 2024. Via Hogan_guitars_USA, was just starting to finally pay some attention to the WNBA. That's a tell. Because somebody was actually worth watching. Then you caved. Sad face. Beam Eater with a similar tone. Dang. Supported you when all the liberal WNBA players were against you, but can't support someone that is voting for Kamala, whose policies will hurt the future generation's ability to own a house or get a high-paying job. That is patently false. David Dennis Jr. of ESPN would fire off this tweet, which I think is emblematic of what we just saw. The people in Caitlin Clark's mentions attacking her for liking Swift's posts are a reminder of what so many of us have been saying all along. Those people were never Clark fans. They only wanted to use her to attack black women and are mad Clark isn't beholden to their anti-blackness. Stamp of approval, concur, 1000% agree. Let me go back to something. One of these posts said, I never paid attention to the WNBA until you. It plays into what David Dennis is talking about there. We'd lost another great baller, but now she's involved in politics of the Dems, and then there was another, you just couldn't keep politics out of sports. It goes to show the same sort of feeling of former IOC President Avery Brundage, who said and peddled into this sort of narrative that sports are no place for politics. Politics should not be placed into sports. Meanwhile, he supported the Nazis. And he gifted the Olympic Games to the Big H, who I won't say. And we're seeing this over and over and over again because what they want, and he would, of course, punish Tommy Smith and John Carlos, who protested on the medal stand and basked in his own reflected glory of kicking them out. What he meant, and what others mean, is when they go over these lines over and over again, it is that it's not that they don't want politics in sports, it's that they want to crush dissent and anybody who holds a differing opinion from them. And many watching this will then say, well, what about all the stuff that you've covered? And what about the different athletes and policies that you've covered? I have never once and never will say, this person does not deserve to have a voice because they spoke out politically. What I will do is fact check what an athlete says, whether it is right or wrong. That's our job as media. Our job isn't to say, if you protest during the national anthem, you should be booted from the country. You should be deported. If you don't like it, leave. You should be proud to be an American. And if you show any sort of dissent towards America, you should leave and you should go to wherever. Or as the former president would say, go back. Like a pure racist diss. It is very interesting how many of her fans, and they're showing themselves, how many of her fans, some not all, placate into this sort of mantra. And it, again, shows what David Dennis Jr. is saying is accurate. That it is not about her just having a political opinion. It's what they used her for. And that is why she denounced anybody who would use her name in vain to go against other players. Now, why is this also important? Because if we remember in July, Breonna Stewart would say, we have been talking, especially with the Social Justice Committee, finding a way to make sure that we can obviously back Kamala Harris as much as we can, because everything that we've been kind of working for this year has been about voting rights, reproductive rights. The things she stands for, we also stand for. So making sure that we can definitely stay united and continue to push the message of registering to vote, knowing where to vote, and all the resources behind it. I got to put this in perspective for everybody, okay? When the WNBA comes together, that candidate usually wins, or a measure is passed, or a prop is proposed and passed, etc., etc. And the most glaring example in the form of positivity was when former Atlanta Dream owner Kelly Loeffler, who was gifted a seat by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, came up for re-election in 2020. WNBA players wore shirts that simply said, "Vote Warnock." Prior to them doing that, per the Seattle Times, Warnock was polling at 9% and fourth among 21 candidates vying for that Senate seat in Georgia. After they did this, huge turnout, huge numbers, they would go to a runoff with Loeffler and Warnock, and the latter would win, flipping Georgia blue. That is why this is very big, that the WNBA is getting on board, because not only are they a force to be reckoned with, but they sway a lot of people's minds when they get political and when they get involved. In addition, how big of an endorsement is this from the singer?
What is the Swift effect?
Yeah, what is the Swift effect? So, look, what do we know? Visitors to vote.gov due to Taylor Swift, who clicked on that link on her Instagram post. As of 2 p.m. yesterday, look how many folks clicked on that link. It was 338,000 folks. Now, not all those folks, obviously, are going to register to vote. But the bottom line is this is a ton of folks who could be entering the electorate. Look, it's not necessarily something that's going to change the election if Donald Trump ends up winning by 2 or 3 points. But of course, the votes in these key battleground states are so tight that any help that you could get at all, this is a clear effect of folks going and getting interested to register to vote. You saw last night Taylor Swift again urging folks to go register to vote. Democrats will take any of the help because the bottom line is this election is so close that any small impact could be all the impact in the world, Kate.
If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. And or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.